All right, what are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite subjects. I was actually just talking with some SBS guys at lunch, and one of them said that I was asking them, because I was trying to do our thing, so I just asked the guys at my table what their favorite SBS book was.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them said Samuel, because of looking at the relationship between Jonathan and David. And it's like, you just don't see friends like that anymore.
Huh,
And I was like,
interesting.
well, yeah, we don't really. Why do you think that is? It's like, I have no idea.
Huh.
But I think it's interesting looking at how technology plays into that. I think our greatest human desire is also our greatest fear, like they said, which is intimacy.
Yeah.
And we found a way to deceive ourselves into thinking that we have
Mm-hmm.
what we want without it costing us anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this kind of self-deception / self-gratification
Yeah.
that's happening.
Well, the scary thing is that has anyone here signed in on Jim Isom's teaching?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that he says is that almost all addictions come from a lack of intimacy. And so we're trying to fill in a gap because of a lack of intimacy. But what we're doing is we're creating a whole generation that doesn't know how to be intimate. So what's going to come out of that is there's going to be more and more addictions. Yeah.
And I'm challenged too, because I mean, I did a teach on this a little bit, just about like wanting to belong and different things, just all these like relationship with integrity and all these things. And I didn't have a friend. I called him because I do like talking on the phone. I'd rather talk than text sometimes, even though I text a lot. And so as I call him, he goes, "Hey dude, why don't you just," basically the same thing. He's like, I only use calling and talking if it's an emergency, so just text. I don't want to talk on the phone. I was like,
Yeah.
alright. I mean, it's fine. I understand his heart, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but we're losing that art of communication, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we're losing that, and it scares me because I'm just as guilty
Mm-hmm.
with that as well. Though I understand what she's saying, and I agree with it completely. I'm in the same situation. I mean, I've got 2 laptops, an iPad, and an iPhone, or a phone right here, and I'm using them all the time, constantly. And then I think to myself, well, maybe that's why my eyesight is getting worse and worse and worse, is because my time is spending on an LCD screen, and I can't focus on something that's actually real because my mind is so stimulated with things that. So I think it's even affecting our bodies physically,
Yeah.
as well as spiritually, and I say spiritually because I'm devoting more of my time on Minecraft and Clash of Clans than I am in the Word and reading.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
even what she was saying,
and relationships.
if we are afraid of being alone, if we're afraid of solitude, well, almost all the spiritual writers will say without silence and solitude, I mean, Henry Nouwen goes so far as to say it's impossible to grow with God without silence and solitude. So we're actually creating a
Bad thing.
pattern where it's almost impossible for us to experience that, because then we're not in touch with our emotions. We're not in touch with what's really going on inside of us. And if we can't do that, we're only going to be able to live at a certain level.
I like too in this video that it says like the whole idea of editing and deleting. Like I get to
Yeah.
edit and delete my life and make it look as perfect as I want. And then like you think about, like for me I was just thinking there's so many people that I know will not say things to me in person. But when they get on the computer they're like, oh, and this is going on and this is going on, and they'll completely open up over Facebook because it's so much easier for them to communicate it all in a way that actually, because they can edit and delete
You
it.
can edit and delete. That's a big one, I think,
Yeah.
actually. That's why I think people like texting better than talking.
Mhm.
Is because they can, I mean, and how many times do you do that? You text and you go, oh no, I shouldn't say it that way, I'll say it this way.
I do.
I'll retype it and not retyping it. Oh, it
Yeah.
sounds perfect.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah, because we're not vulnerable with each other anymore when we start doing that.
Yeah. Which is why now you have to have books written about vulnerability.
Have Brene Brown do it.
Yeah. Matthew 18:15-17. Who wants to read that? It's got some gadget that can.
If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take 1 or 2 others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector.
All right, so what is this saying?
your starting?
Where's your starting point?
One to
Oh.
1-on-1, yeah, and then what? If that doesn't work,
2-on-1.
2-on-1, all right, so the idea here is to keep the circle small, right? Now, this thing is actually dealing with sin, so that's the context of this passage. But I think we can take elements of it into conflict resolution and keep the same philosophy of keeping that circle small. So if you think about it, the first thing we want to do, we want to go 1-on-1, all right? So if you have a conflict, you're A, and you have a conflict with B, your first line of defense in our culture is to go directly to that person, right? Now, if you need wisdom, if you need some ideas or whatever, there is the times for that. Sometimes you are above what you know how to handle a situation. Sometimes it's a little more difficult. So you may need to go to a person C to get wisdom. But if you do that, be very strategic of who you go to. That they will actually force you back. Because what will happen is A will vent to C. And they actually feel better for a moment because they vented, their emotions got put out there, and so they can feel better a little bit to some degree, but it actually hasn't done anything to rebuild this relationship, okay? And so that's where you have to be very careful. If you're a person C, one of the things that I still do this, if you're gonna tell me, you can tell me, but you need to know that from here I'm gonna direct you to the right place to deal with this. So if you're willing to do that, then we can talk, but know that there will be follow-up on your part. I'm not just here for you to vent on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we have to be careful as A, that we're careful not to do it, but as a C person, we set the guidelines for what that can look like if they do come to us. Okay? Then, even in some circumstances, what I'll do is, okay, well, I'll go with you to person B, if it's somebody that's too hard for them to go and confront on their own. All right, 1-on-1 is still the best, but if for some reason they can't, then I'll go with them. All right, but what tends to happen?
A goes to C, doesn't even go back to B.
And maybe D, and maybe E, and we gather a team around us, right? To validate our thoughts, to validate our opinion, and this is absolutely, completely unhealthy. All right. So we have to avoid that, and it feels good for a moment because we get to vent, we get some emotion out, but it's actually the most unhealthy way to deal with things, and it actually is in such a way it can be toxic to an organization if everybody's doing this. All right, so we gotta not do that. But there are times when you legitimately have to go to a C person, but you still want to keep it as small as you can, because and you gotta think about it. If you're person B, and somebody has to come and talk to you, do you want them doing this? No, you want them coming directly to you. And you want them to be honest and to be open with you. All right, so we have to make sure we're treating other people the way we would want to be treated. I think the other thing too is what is also damaging about this is that you have just changed, if you are doing this, you've just changed the relationship this person has with this person has with them, and they have with them. One of the things that Mark and I we share a lot of stuff, but there's actually a lot we don't share with each other. Because if I'm privy to a lot of information because of my position, and because of some of the things that I hear, well, I very rarely will share that with him, because then he doesn't need his view of that person tarnished. All right? And especially if girls share things with me, I definitely don't share that with Mark. And if guys share things with him, he never shares that stuff with me. So, and sometimes I think people assume that we each other know stuff, but we're very careful with this. Because, and Mark is really good at this. He'll ask me, okay, do I need to know this? You know? And sometimes I need him to be a C because I need to know what to do about this. I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. But what happens is we've tarnished the viewpoint. So you may go and talk to these people, and then this person finally realizes you're pissed off at them, so they'll come to you, and they'll try to figure out how to work it out, but they don't know who else do they need to go to now. So it's made things much more complicated and very toxic and unhealthy. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if you need to vent, then you know what? Vent to God. Vent to somebody outside of here. vent, it's okay to vent every once in a while, but know that that actually is only a it's a momentary satisfaction. That's it. Right, we have to take it all the way to the end. All right, so our idea here is to keep the circle as small as we can make it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about cross-culture and then we'll look at our styles. So when you're in a cross-cultural organization, all right, we're going to have to be very careful that we actually think about conflict in two ways. So when we go to another country, we really need to play by their rules, all right? And so however they handle conflict, that's how we have to handle conflict. But when we're in a global organization, we actually have to be kind of acutely aware of who needs what. And we have to, if you need direct, then I need to be direct. But a warm climate culture, they don't want direct, so we have to do it another way with them. And so it's just like personalities. If you're a feeler, I'm going to approach you one way. If you're a thinker, I'm going to approach you a totally different way. So it's the same with cultures. The end result, we want conflict resolution done. How we get there, or conflict management, how we get there may look different as we look at cultures. So in an organization like ours, we have to kind of watch out for what people need. Let's be aware, it's like cultures are similar to personality. We need to be aware of our differences, understand them, but then ultimately respect them. That it's not a right or wrong situation. Yeah, we got that. So in a high context or a safe approach, so warm climate cultures, they actually have 4 ways of dealing with conflict, all right? Their first one is the third party approach. I think we're all familiar with this, all right? So if I have, who's your roommate right now? Oh, Josh. So if I have a problem with Steve, I'm gonna go and tell Josh because he's his roommate, he's a good friend of his, and then Josh knows that it's his job to go tell Steve, okay? So my brother's married to a Filipino. When they have really problems in the marriage, who does she call? Me. And because I know this, I know my role. My role is to get on the phone with my brother and go, buddy, what are you doing? And then he'll work it out with her. But that first initial conversation, she just cannot do. It's just so hard for her culturally. So we have to do it that way within our family, right? So it's that third party approach. And they know that. They know the rules. And here's where we break down. Is Cynthia one time came to me and told me something about somebody, and then I realized it after a while. I'm like, she wants me to do something about that. And then I'm like, for some reason, because she was here and we're in this context, I didn't think about the third party thing. And then I realized after a couple of days, oh, she wants me to address this. So I actually went back to her though and I said, okay, in this culture, here's how we're going to have to do this. Yeah, so that she's gonna have to do things that are a bit awkward for her. The next one is the mediator approach, and that is that culture to do this is that you'll have 2 people. If I'm coming in as the mediator, so I've got 2 people, and that approach seems to work. That's another way that they'll do it. But here's the interesting thing: is they'll look at you. They won't look at each other. It's like they're telling you. So it's in a way it's a third party approach. But the other person is in the room to hear it, okay? The other one is the vulnerability approach, and that is, oh man, it's, if you want to tell your roommate to turn the lights off, it's that vulnerability approach where you kind of just toss out what you're feeling. It's a very indirect way, but oh, that light is bright. So it's kind of, that light is bright for my eyes. So it's showing of what you're feeling. So that's called the vulnerability approach, right? So if I say, oh, it's cold in here, oh, it's kind of cold. Well, then one of you picks up on the cue that we either turn the heat up, close the doors, close the windows, do something like that.
She doesn't feel at home here.
Yes. Fix it, I'm not at home. All right, the next one is the storytelling approach, which we see Jesus used a lot in the parables, right? Is he tells a story, and by the story, you know that it's actually you, that it's directed to you. And so it's a way of confronting that's impersonal, okay? So there's 4 ways of a third party approach.
There was this person that was so rude. They were sitting in the room with me. See, that's great, so rude.
The
Yeah.
Nathan and Dave approach.
So when you're in a global organization, if you have somebody that you're working with, you're in conflict with from a warm climate, your best approach is one of these. Okay? They're gonna have to learn how to be direct, more direct. And we have to learn how to be okay with this. And the other thing is action speaks louder than words. So once it's resolved, once you resolve the conflict, you better do an action that follows up on that. Bring coffee, bring something that you know they like, do something with them, whatever. Because action speaks louder than words. We can talk all we want about this, but until you show me that we're okay, I won't know we're okay. All right? I think you guys all know our approach, right? It's that you're gonna have to go directly to them. So let's talk about some ways how to do that.
I like those.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so let's look a little bit then at how to resolve some conflict, and this is where we're headed a little bit. Okay, so let's just go with the fact that these are all good, okay? But there's an appropriate time to use each one of these, okay? So lose-lose. Basically for this one, it's like you lose, I lose. And what this is that this is the relationship part of the grid. This is relationship is high as you go along. And this is the issue or the concern is very high for you, okay? So if you don't really care so much about the issue, you really don't really care about the relationship, well then let's just make a quick decision to get this over with, all right? We don't care. We don't. There's not enough care. And so it may be a good decision, but it may not. It may just be a decision, right? It's a lose-lose kind of a situation. But this also can be. So that's one way of using it more in a positive way. Let's just make a decision. The more negative way is that, you know what, I don't care enough about this issue to fight for my value in it. And I actually don't care enough. We think we're saving somebody by not going into conflict. But what we're really saying is I don't care enough about our relationship to go deep in intimacy with you over this. So I'm going to hide. I'm going to shove it under the carpet. I'm not going to go deep. Okay? So that's a little bit more on the negative side of that one. Then you have your shark. Okay, so your shark is going to win and you're going to lose. All right, so they want to win because for them the issue is high, the concern for the relationship is low. So a time when you would use this as a parent, you know what? Sorry, you are not taking drugs. Sorry, you know, like somebody that on this base just got their cell phone taken away from them because they were texting after 9. I don't care. Like, here's our rules. I don't care if you think I'm the best parent in the world right now. You're going to lose. I'm going to win. All right? So there's a lot of times for that. In crisis, we don't really want to collaborate too much. We want the person that knows the information to win, and the rest of us are just going to do whatever that person says. All right? So there is a time for that. Maybe let me go over some of these ones here just in case there's some things I'm not thinking about. Yeah, turtles tend to give up their personal goals. We talked about that. They tend to be more submissive. The advantage to that is that they maintain relationship that could be hurt in conflict. The disadvantage is conflicts remain unresolved or overuse of that style leads others to walking all over them, so over and over again. So times when to use the turtle style is when the stakes are not high or the issue is trivial, when confrontation will hurt a working relationship, when there's little chance of satisfying your wants, those are the times when you'd want to use that. When gathering information is more important than the immediate decision, when others can more effectively resolve the conflict, when time constraints demand a delay. So those are the times when you would use the avoiding turtle. The competing shark, when relationships are of low priority, we talked about that. When the issue is high, the advantage, if the shark's decision is correct, a better decision without compromise can result. Yeah, if you try to go with compromise, when actually this would be the best, then you want to do that. The disadvantage is it could breed hostility and resentment towards the person using it. So you do want to use it only sparingly. You want to use it when really that issue is high. I always think with the way we do make decisions on this base, it's very collaborative. It's really geared towards the win-win. But there have been times over the years when, you know what, somebody has to step in and say, no, we're actually going to do it this way. And it was the right call and the right decision. because we were going around and around and we weren't able to make a decision. When conflict so the appropriate times to use this is when conflict involves personal differences that are difficult to change, when fostering intimate or supportive relationships is not critical, when others are likely to take advantage of non-competitive behavior. That's oftentimes when I've seen a leader step in. When you have your vocal people and your not so vocal people at war, they might step in and go, we're doing this, because it doesn't seem to be coming to an end. When conflict resolution is urgent, when decision is vital in crisis, when unpopular decisions need to be implemented, like you're not going to take drugs, you're not going to do this. Okay?
That's a good
It's
one.
an unpopular.
That's an unpopular one. All right. So the next one is the teddy bear. And the teddy bear is basically that submissive person. I care about what you think a little bit more than I care about what I think. So I'm going to lay myself down so that you can have your way. And so there's definitely that they'll lose, and then what happens when they've lost too much?
They commit suicide.
Then they could.
I know people who have done that.
Yeah, it could happen. But then all of a sudden they'll become aggressive, right?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Now, this is you can use this one. If the relationship is really important and you don't care so much about the issue, then that's fine. So we're gonna go for Indian food, or I like Indian food, you like Thai food, and we're trying to make a decision. You know, we can't really compromise on that one, unless we're in a big city that has Indian and Thai food at the same place or whatever.
Not here.
All right, we're not gonna, so it's hard to compromise, so somebody's gonna have to lose. But if I just wanna spend time with you, I like Thai food too, well then let's go. So that's when you would use that style, all right? So it's okay to use that from time to time. But again, they can get walked over. So the advantage is accommodating maintains relationship. The disadvantage is giving in may not be productive. Bear may be taken advantage of. So when to use it, when maintaining the relationship outweighs the considerations, when suggestion changes are not important to the accommodator, when minimizing losses in situations we're outmatched by losing. So there are times when you just give up, let it go. When time is limited or when harmony and stability are valued. One of the things when Mark and I were leading SBS together, we kind of had an agreement when it came to decision making. If we butted heads with decisions and he was thinking one thing and I was thinking one thing, if it had to do with practical running of the school, then I would be the one to back down. And we had this in agreement before the school started. If it had to do with relationships, then he would back down. Because we were kind of catering to each other's strengths. Then I trust that you're seeing something I'm not seeing. And then he would trust that I was seeing something that he wasn't seeing. Yeah. So compromise is actually probably one of the weaker ones. And sometimes it's okay to compromise when the issue's not that big and we're not really that concerned about relationship. But what happens in a compromise is it's actually a form of lose-lose. Everybody loses, everybody gains, it has something, but everybody loses something. And so if you use that one too much, then it just feels, it feels dissatisfying, okay? All right. Foxes are compromising conflict management style. Concern is for goals and relationships. Again, it's that whole thing about relationships. The advantage is relationships are maintained and conflicts removed. So it's a quick way to actually deal with a conflict. All right, but my guess is that one will come up again and again and again if you're just, because nobody's truly satisfied with the compromise. Now sometimes that's the best one to use. Again, if it's not that big of a deal, then use a compromise. All right, but you want to be careful how much you use that one. Disadvantage, compromise may create less than ideal outcome and game playing can result. All right, so then there's like, well, I'll say this and then we keep track and it can be a little scary. When important or complex issues have no clear or simple solutions, you might want to compromise. When all conflicting people are equal in power and have strong interests in different solutions, you might want to compromise. When there are no time restraints, then you want to do that. You might want to compromise, okay? But the problem with this one is, again, it can leave people slightly dissatisfied, okay? So a lot of times people this is the fallback one, is that's compromise on this, but you want to be careful with this, okay? Most of the time we want to go for the win-win, all right? But not all the time. Okay, and I'll tell you when that one's not good either. All right, so the collaborating is basically, I care about my concerns, I care about yours, and we want to come up with a solution that meets all your concerns and it meets all mine. That's going to take time. Because we are going to have to dissect, first of all, what are all the things you're thinking about, what's all really important to you in this, and what's really important to me. So right now I'm working with a group of people on the base and two groups that one wants one thing, one wants another thing. Okay, now how are we going to do this so that you get all your needs met and they get all their needs met? What's the best way to make this work? All right, so the advantage to collaborating and to the OWL is both sides get what they want and negative feelings are eliminated. And usually what happens is that you come up with this idea, I have this idea, and we actually come to an agreement on this idea. All right, it's something completely different. It's not a compromise. It's something that's out of the box that actually meets your needs and my needs. Now the disadvantage is it takes a huge amount of time. And that's why we default to the compromise, okay? But you really want to be careful with that. When maintaining relationships is important, that's a good one. When time is not a concern. Quick decisions are not the time when you're always going to be able to do that. When pure conflict is involved, so you got people of equal status trying to make something happen, you want a win-win. When trying to gain commitment, which is a marriage. When trying to gain commitment through consensus building. But there is a way to do win-win even when you don't have full consensus. And that is somebody can say, yeah, I'm on board. It might not be the perfect idea, but I can see that it's what everybody's thinking, so I am fully on board. Mm-hmm. When learning and trying to merge differing perspectives, you would want to use that. So it's worth the time. Sometimes the more a team is together and making decisions, and especially in a marriage, the more you do this, then you know what's important to each other. And so they become quicker than the early years of marriage and the early years of the team. All right, so what do we got here? What are your top 2 styles?
I scored the same on 3 of them.
Okay, so which ones?
The competing shark, the accommodating teddy bear, and the compromising fox.
Okay, well, you're so
Yeah.
depending on which situation.
I scored 7 on each.
Okay.
So that means, but
Well, probably for you, it's how close you are to people, what your, yeah. All right.
Mine was interesting. The collaborating owl. Those are the only ones I gave 1s to. All across the board, so that was interesting. It was by a landslide. And then the other 2 were fox and teddy bear, so clearly the relationship's important to me.
Yeah, so that's
On
so
that
you're
side.
all on this side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd let go of the issue,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's something just to know about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you could compromise on this issue because of relationships, and sometimes you should do that,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you shouldn't. Yeah. All right.
And the accommodating teddy bear, if I almost put a 1 on every single one.
Okay.
And then fox was my next one.
All right. So again, for you, relationship is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to know. You need to even in the midst.
So
Why do you want to be a shark?
because
Even in
they're
the-
like
They're very direct. They're.
I was happy to be an owl.
So what you want to
I do
do?
want to be an owl.
What you want to do is you want to in a halfway. If you're in a conflict, you're gonna always get swayed to here. So what you want to do is you want to stop yourself in the middle of a conflict and go, okay, what's really important to me in this? And kind of help separate, like they call it going to the balcony. In the midst of a conflict, you step outside of the argument for a second, look into it. Okay, what's really important to me? What will I regret not saying later? And so you want to make sure that you just remind yourself of what's important to you on the issue. As you're in the agreement, you may let go of some things. But you want to ask yourself what's really important within that, right? Okay. Josh, I didn't give you too much. For you, you're probably adjusting according to what you want. But in each one of these, somebody's losing, all right? So what you may want to do is try some of this to see and this will take more time. Yeah. So you identify who's losing what in this.
Yeah.
And is there a better way so that people don't have to lose yourself or the other person? All right, Matt, what's yours?
My lowest, I'm a teddy bear and a collaborator.
The owl and the teddy bear?
No, the teddy bear, yeah, yeah,
The owl and the teddy bear?
collaborating.
It's a relationship.
Yeah, I'm all about relationships.
So the relationship is really high.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't understand what that's got to do with the issue though, because I mean, owl's really high.
yeah,
So I mean, I think depending on what we're talking about, I will hold my ground, taking into consideration the other person. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather save the relationship than do what I want to do, which kind of has gotten me into a lot of trouble, actually.
yeah.
Not in trouble, but.
So you probably want to do the same thing, is halfway in this thing, okay, and ask yourself, okay, am I letting go? Why am I letting go? Because I really believe it's the best thing? Which could be. Or am I letting go because I want to keep harmony?
Mhm.
And then what, is there something about the issue that actually I do care about?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what your self-talk inside needs to kind of be. And that's hard to do when the emotions are being amped.
Especially when you're a feeler, like.
Yeah,
you know
oh,
what I mean?
yeah, I get it.
I gotta take that balcony look there.
You gotta go up on the balcony. Yeah, alright.
My strongest would be the accommodating teddy bear, and then second would be the compromising fox.
Okay, so you're kind of more on this side to keep the peace.
Yeah, or just usually the issue just doesn't matter as much to me.
You don't care so much about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then for you, then that's that self-awareness piece is really what do I care about with this? Because then you'll get disappointed. Is to be making sure that you're in situations where you're not going to have regret later by not saying the right thing or asking the right things. Yeah. Well, and sometimes, because you're an introvert.
I'm an extrovert.
Well, you are an
I'm just
extrovert.
very quiet.
That's right. So because what can happen then is that you can have the feelings inside, but they're not being externalized at times too. So I just want to check on that. All right.
What are you, did you say?
For me, I'm probably, I lean towards this because I want that. But for me, I'll be a teddy bear if I'm very rarely this. But in my marriage, I probably, well, and with some of my family members, I can be, and with Gordy and Ron, like people that are really close with me, I can be quite sharp. Like, ask Gordy if he'd probably say I'm actually quite a bit this.
Do you feel because you're pretty secure in your relationships?
I'm very secure in my relationship with them, so I feel like I can fight for the issue, and I feel like as the only woman that I feel like I sometimes have a different perspective that I have to fight for.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm not a pushover by any means in those situations.
Which one? Is the teddy bear a pushover? They're kind of pushovers.
Teddy bears are pushovers, yep, and turtles,
Unfortunately.
yeah.
Do you think that as you, like, in some relationships, I guess it's kind of going on what you're saying, but some relationships, if you really work on them, that you can move up to the, like, owl, like, you get more.
Okay, so I don't want you to see it working up to the owl, because here's the problem with the owl, is if you're a total owl, you're so frustrating to work with from time to time. Because you can't make a decision until everybody's happy. So don't see that as
Okay, so it's
the,
not like, sounds better.
yeah, don't see that as the end goal, actually.
Okay.
Because this can frustrate people about me. Is that I will want to hammer out a thing until I know everybody is okay with it.
Right.
And so then decisions take a lot longer.
So it's really that you
Yeah.
need to move to one in one situation and one to the
Yeah,
other.
you have to
need
know which one to use in different
Right.
circumstances.
Right.
Yeah. But we all tend to have a go-to.
Yeah.
And so we have to be aware of our go-to so that we don't always go there. Yeah,
That makes sense.
all right? Okay, good.
Yay.
You all ready to be interpersonal?
Oh yeah.
You all ready to get married?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, this was kind of like premarital counseling, isn't it?
10 years down the line.
All right, Lord, I thank you for this group of communicators. And Father, we all are a work in progress when it comes to interpersonal communication. And so, Father, I just pray that first and foremost that we would have our security in you,
our identity would be so surely planted in the fact that we are the beloved, and that from there we can have these conversations. From there we can say the hard things, we can hear the hard things. And so Lord, I just ask that you would just help all of us grow in our self-awareness, to grow in our ability to express ourselves, and our ability to listen to others. And Father, I just thank you that you take us on this journey, and we're all learning and we're all growing. In Jesus' name, amen.